to show you how to decorate this beautiful pink heart cake using only 4 icing tips. Now, I got my cake out of the refrigerator. That's iced in American buttercream. That icing is cold and hard, so I'm not going to mess this up. I printed that font out the size that I wanted it to be, and I'm taking my Dresden tool and I'm tracing all of these letters onto the icing. That way the letters will transfer and I will have something to trace. And then when I peel back the paper, you can see the letters on there, and whoops, some of it stuck to the paper. That's okay. I'm just taking my palette knife and just smoothing that out. I'm going to trace it, so it's going to cover that anyway. I have an icing bag with a tip number 3, and I want to rest my elbow on something that's elevated. And I'm supporting my writing hand with my other hand so it doesn't shake. And I do not have the tip on the cake. I have it just lifted off of the cake, and I'm letting the icing flow out of the tip. To do this, you want to make sure you have thinned buttercream. Again, that is American buttercream. I just added a little bit of water to thin it out so it can easily flow through the tip without getting messed up. And I don't really like how that cue looks, so I'm just going to start all over. I'm taking my palette knife and just scraping that off. And this time, to keep it looking nicer, where it comes to an intersection, I'm just going to stop for a brief moment and then continue. That way the lines won't look as crooked. And once I'm done that, I'm taking a paintbrush and I dipped it in some water and I'm pushing in the points. So wherever I lifted up that tip, the icing came to a point. So I just want to smooth it out. And also the lines were a little crooked. So I'm just trying to refine everything and make it look nice and pretty. Now I'm making lines here with a circle cutter so I know where to trace the swags. So you can see I'm starting on the right and moving it to the left, and I'm making sure it's all at the same spot down in the middle of the cake. And I did that the whole way around. And let's start decorating with buttercream. Now the second tip I'm using is the Atiko 124K ruffle tip. And I have the tapered end facing up and the wide end is facing down. And you can see I'm just kind of going back and forth, lifting it up and then pressing it down against the cake to get this waved effect. And then after that, I'm going to take my tip number 18. This is the third tip that we're using. And I'm putting ropes just on top of these swags. And I did that on top of all 6 of them. And once I'm done that, I want to take my Dresden tool and I'm just drawing a line in between all of these so I have something to trace. I want to do another rope swag, but I don't want it to come all the way down. I'm just trying to eyeball it and get it to look as even as possible. And then again, I'm taking that icing bag with the tip number 18 and tracing all of these. And I decided to take the same tip number 18 and do little rosettes at each of the intersections. And now let's do the shell border on the top. So this is a tip 6B, and with your shells, you want to squeeze and push back a little bit. And as you come forward to a point, you're going to release pressure. I like to do my shells pretty slow and just one at a time to make sure that they all come to a point. And then once I get down to the point of the heart, I'm going to go back to the very top and come down the other side. And then I'm doing the same shell borders on the very bottom. Again, starting in the very back. When I get to the point, I'm going to start in the back on the other side and bring them to a point. And then I'm going to go back to that number 18 tip and do a reverse shell on the inside of that shell border. So with a reverse shell, you do a question mark and a C, and you keep alternating question mark and C shape. And it just gives a different look than a regular shell border. I love reverse shell borders, and I decided to do that on the outside of the shells on the top of the cake, as well as on top of the shell border going around the bottom of the cake. And now I want to make the loop. So I'm cutting a ribbon. That ribbon is 3/8 inch thick, and I am just doing the little bunny ear technique that you learn when you first tie your shoes, making the 2 loops and tying them together. I'm not pulling the knot tight yet. I'm getting the tails the length that I want them to be, and then I will pull the bows tight, and I can easily stick them to the cake. And then I want to trim the bottom on an angle with my scissors and just getting them to the correct length, and then I can manipulate them and get them into the correct position. And then I'm doing the same thing for the other 3 bows. Now I got that ribbon at Michael's, and I colored the icing with burgundy wine from Deco Pack and got it to be the same color. And there you go. See how easy it is to make a cake that's as sweet as it is beautiful using only 4 tips.